the 2024 rookie class was one of those draft classes where I think a lot of people talked about it in a way where it didn't seem like there was a ton of star upside. And now that we're almost done with the rookie season of that draft class, I think we're starting to get a bit clearer of a picture of which guys do kind of have that star potential and which guys are probably just going to have careers as role players, or which guys, may just not stick in the NBA. So today we're going to be going through this rookie class and picking our top 5 rookies. Matt, before we jump into it, do you have any notes, any sort of criteria, any caveats that you want to get out of the way before we jump into it?
Yes, two notes. One is this is our second annual rookie pod. As opposed to last year, me and Alex are going to be counting down our top 5 rookies. But the key delineation distinction here to look for is that we are looking at them ceiling-wise, like future. This is more future-facing, right? Our top 5 rookies, potential kind of base. This is not this year's production, and I think that will really reflect on the omission of one particular player that I don't have in my top 5. I don't know if you have him in your top 5. I know we've both been very impressed with him this year, but we'll see. We'll see when we get back to it. By the way, we're back. We're so back. We're not doing an intro for retention purposes, but yeah, we're back. Now, Alex, do you want to give your 5th guy, or should I give my 5th guy? Because I think our 5th guy is going to be different. I know for sure one of the guys in your top 5 who he's going to be. And He's not in my top 5.
I want you to go first. But yes, just to echo some of the stuff that you said, I do not look at this podcast as a rookie of the year race podcast. Again, I'm going to say it one more time, and I will not say it again for the rest of the episode. We are not picking our rookie of the year. We are picking who we want long-term, like who, if we're a team trying to get like the best player possible long-term, that's more of what we're looking for. This is not a rookie of the year podcast. That being said, Matt, who's your number 5?
Yeah, so like we said, so for me, what I did is I put down 12 rookies that really kind of stood out to me this year. And I asked myself, if everything breaks their way, what do I think they could be in this league? And then I also weighed in how likely I think that is. Not to be confused with Derek Lively. I don't know why I even brought that up because it's not that similar. But my number 5 guy, again, this is not a strong class, so my anticipation is that he's kind of a low end 1 or 2 time all-star if it all breaks his way. But this is going to surprise you. I've got Kyle Filipowski. What do you think of that? Is he in your top 5?
He is in my top 5.
What?
He is also my top 5. So let's talk about him.
Is he your 5th guy?
Yeah, he's my number 5.
No way.
He's been fantastic.
Are you serious? Wow.
I am serious.
The first big thing for me is that, usually when you're on a team like the Jazz, who are bad, lack infrastructure, they don't really play veteran players anymore. I think they've kind of given up on that idea. There's this guy named Cooper Flagg. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's pretty good. They might want him. So usually when that happens, all the guys on the team, their efficiency just tanks, right? But not Kyle Filipowski. He is at 61% true shooting. That's in the 80th percentile. And I think the cool thing is he's very efficient from every part of the floor. 70th percentile rim percentage, 95th percentile mid-range, 71st percentile three-point shooting. Very, very, very skilled passer. He has the highest passer rating of any big in this class. And so, when I'm looking at it, I think of, just being big, right, and being really good on offense. Really, really good, but not Nikola Jokic level. And I'm looking at Domantas Sabonis. I'm looking at Nikola Vucevic. I'm looking at, this guy's much better. And Kyle Filipowski would be lucky to have this career, but Pau Gasol, right? These guys who are very, very good on offense, and then defensively, it is what it is, but he's still huge. He's still 7 feet tall. So that helps you a lot, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at, where it's if everything breaks this guy's way, he's under a great coach in Will Hardy. I think most likely he's probably Kelly Olynyk, which is a good outcome for where he's getting drafted. But if he can sharpen up all those skills, if he can continue to be that efficient while taking more shots and having more primacy in the offense, and with that passing ability and the size, like I could see like a Nikola Vucevic career for him. And I mean, you know, we joke about Vucevic now and his limitations as a defender and how it makes team building a little difficult, but he was in his peak a low-end all-star.
Yeah, I think that's like the perfect way to describe him. And, you know, we don't have to dive too much into this, but with Filipowski, I think people kind of forget that he was mocked pretty high in the draft until some weird stuff started popping up. And I don't know how much, you know, from a front office perspective, it seems like there's nothing that could possibly scare a front office from bringing a player on board. The Charlotte Hornets are proof of that. So, you know, I don't know how much some of that pre-draft stuff had an impact on his draft position. But yeah, I think, like you said, I think the best way to describe him is if everything breaks his way, and the best case scenario of him is like, yeah, one or two time All-Star and just like a very solid career as, you know, a somewhat limited big man. Like, yeah, he's got a lot of flaws, but the stuff that he does well, he does really well. Like, I think since January 1st, he's like a 39% 3-point shooter on like 4 attempts a game, which for a rookie, anything is wild. Like point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center, to shoot that well from 3 as a rookie is very unusual. For a 7-foot center to be doing it is like albatross, like very, very, very unusual. And like you said, the passing has really popped. He's in the Will Hardy system, which I think is going to do a great job of empowering those strengths. And, you know, the defense is what it is. We'll see how much is ultimately going to be there, but he's a 7-footer, and depending on the personnel that you surround him with, you know, some of those limitations will be more glaring, depending on who's flanking him. But, you know, I'm with you. I think long term, he's definitely solidified himself as if you've been watching the Jazz, which I know this is going to be a pick that a lot of people look at and they have not watched many Jazz games this year, or they haven't even, Kyle Filipowski hasn't even been on their radar. But like, if you've watched the Jazz, it's pretty apparent that like, yeah, this guy is a great basketball player. The driving too, like not necessarily like, I don't want him taking a ton of dribbles or anything, but he when he's attacking the basket, like he's good at it. He can do it at an efficient rate where I'm like, yeah, you know, you're attacking a closeout or something, and you're able to get to your spot and get to the rim and finish at a solid rate. And you know, there's something to be said for just the inherent value of that. And I'm with you. I'm totally with you on Filipowski.
I want to go 2 quick stats before we move on from this one. First, I'm not ashamed to admit it. When I was doing my prep for this podcast, I watched some Alex Hoops YouTube videos. Okay, I learned from my co-host, right? And, you know, you just posted a beautiful video on Matas Buzelis. I'm not even sure if you pronounce his name like that. A guy who I'm in my head, I'm thinking you might have in your top 5. Don't say anything about it. But and you had that graphic about guys driving over 100 times since January 1st and their efficiency on it. And Kyle Filipowski was lapping the field. He was just so efficient, and that at 7 feet tall, that is just such a unique skill in a game that prioritizes that combination of size and skill. The other thing I want to talk about, Alex, you're pretty familiar with every year I like to do look at the 10 best game score averages of rookies' game scores as stat on Basketball Reference, which is associated with StatHead, which if you use the code MEDIAPASS, you can get, I think it's 20% off your year-long StatHead subscription. It helps the channel a lot. Again, the code MEDIAPASS. I think that's our ad read for the show. But
that was a good segue. Very nice.
Thank you.
Well done.
This year, Kyle Filipowski's average of his best 10 games, according to Game Score, is 17.2. Last year, Derek Lively, his average, 10 best game scores, 17.4. Derek Lively is a pretty good basketball player, would you not say?
I agree.
Right?
No argument just for me.
Different types of players, okay, but just some food for thought. Do you want to move on to number 4? Because I think I'm interested to see who you got at number 4.
So this is where it gets really tough for me because I think we end up in a conversation about who do you want long term and who's been the best this year, because I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think Jalen Wells has been really good this year. Jalen Wells is not my top 5.
He's not in mine. That's who I was referring to earlier. He's not in my top 5. I'm just
interesting. Yes.
How much better can you get than this?
That exactly. And this is. I know a lot of people are going to be frustrated because there's a good amount of rookies like a Dalton Connect. I don't know if Dalton Connect is in your top 5.
No,
but like Dalton Connect's been pretty good. I think he's actually kind of out of the rotation right now. But like Dalton Connect for a lot of the year has been one of the more productive contributing rookies. But like we're talking long term. Like if you're placing a bet on somebody to like make all-star games, that's what we're talking about. And so when I was doing this exercise, like I kept looking at Jalen Wells, like trying to convince myself, like, yeah, he should be in the top 5. And just the more I looked at it, I was like, I just don't think I can do that. I'm not buying it. Do you want me to say who's my 4, or do you want to say who's your 4?
I just want to say a quick, I shouldn't throw this shade, but I'm going to throw it. Dalton Connect didn't even make my top 12, but go ahead.
Well, shoot, you went deep in your bag.
Deep.
There's 2 guys who I was kind of wrestling with. And ultimately, I went with Zach Edey.
Okay, I have Zach Edey at, let me double check this. He's in there. He might be, I want to say he's 2. Is he 2? This is bad that I don't have memorized.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, it went away. Yeah, he is 2. He's 2 for me.
Okay, so I specifically want to say something with Zach Edey. I was wrestling with Zach Edey and kel'el Ware. Because they're like, they're 2 bigs. And you can even kind of like the Ware, Edey, and Misi were all kind of guys where I was like, not necessarily saying like long term I want those guys, or like they're all on similar tiers or similar playing fields for me, but just in terms of like they're kind of more limited players and kind of have more specificity to their role. And with Edey, a lot of it is historically what he's done prior to the NBA and me just believing in that. Like he knows how to play basketball and he's very good at playing the sport of basketball, which I don't really care about your age. I don't really care about, how slow-footed you are or something like that. It's like, if you know how to play basketball really freaking well, then I probably am willing to bet on you long term. And Zach Edey at every level has been really dang good at playing basketball. And he's been so good at the sport of basketball that he's on a team that, despite, going through a coaching change and playing a very modern style of offense that, is very unique. And despite the fact that there's been, allegedly internal locker room stuff, despite all of this mumbo jumbo, Zach Edey has still been a very good basketball player. And the fact that I still don't feel like he's as empowered as he could be, which makes sense. He's playing with John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. You shouldn't be trying to empower Zach Edey. He's very low on the hierarchy, understandably so. But I just think about what it's going to look like when he's maybe a little bit better conditioned, when he's allowed to develop a little bit more shooting touch, when he's maybe asked to space the floor a little bit. All of that stuff, I'm like, hey, this is a really good basketball player. Like, there's a lot of room for him to go up. And I see, like, somewhat of a late career Brook Lopez kind of contributor where it's like, you got this guy who's got a really deep post bag, but he also can, pick and pop and be your roll man. And he sets really good screens. And yeah, he's not the fastest, but he's got good defensive instincts. He's going to have to iron that stuff out. And there's just so many things that Zach, I might even be talking myself into having him higher than 4 as I'm talking through it. But man, he knows how to play basketball. If you know how to play basketball, I'm going to be higher on you.
What a concept.
Especially in this class where there's a lot of guys who don't know how to play basketball yet.
What a concept. But my thing with Edey, I might be a little bit of a prison moment. I don't know. Did you watch? I know you sleep at like 8:30 p.m., but did you watch Memphis and Golden State yesterday?
I did not. I was in bed. Actually, no, I was playing basketball from like 9 to 11 last night, which is very unusual. Matt was very close to what my bedtime actually is. He said 8:30. I'm usually in bed by 10. I watch the West Coast games in the morning.
Good for you that you still find time. I need to play more basketball, more pickup basketball. The kids I coach are always begging me to play with them.
I have blisters all over my feet, dude.
I'm so out of shape. Like just cardio wise. With Edey though, I was watching that Warriors game yesterday, and like that's like supposed to be the game, right? Where it's like this is the problem. Like, Curry's going to take him in drop coverage, and he's going to annihilate him, and he's going to get played off the floor. And for the first like 4 or 5 minutes, that's what happened, right? And then they made a little bit of an adjustment, right? Bring Edey up a little higher in ball screens. They put Scottie Pippen Jr. on Curry, better ball screen navigator, right? It's just like Drew Holiday with Brook Lopez back in the days, right? To help alleviate some of the weaknesses that come with the drop coverage, right? And then Edey just became this problem. And I know the Warriors, they're a small team. They're not equipped to deal with somebody like him, but like he just changes things on offense with his size. Like he has outlier size. And, we always talk about like how the ball handler can dictate pick and roll coverages, right? If you play Steph Curry, you can't play him in a drop really because he'll burn you with his pull up. If you play John Morant, you can't play him in anything other than drop because you need to protect the paint, right? And he's not a strong jump shooter. Edey's roll gravity makes it so that you basically have to play drop coverage against him, right? And we talked a lot about Memphis not really having the ideal team for him yet. Like Desmond Bane is a more ideal pick and roll partner for Edey than John Morant because Desmond Bane can actually, shoot pull-up threes at a very high level. And that combination where you have to play, because you can't switch against Edey. Because what are the chances, first of all, what are the chances you have one guy who can guard Zach Edey? Now imagine having 2 guys. How are you going to do that, right? If he can get a steal, you're done, okay? If you play at the level, if you blitz the ball handler, right? Edey, he still has a ways to go as a short roll passer. Fine, I guess, right? But still, like, I think we're at this point now where if you're like blitzing ball handlers and then get it out to Edey, like, and it's a 4-on-3, like most bigs can make a pretty good decision and get the ball moving around. I don't think short roll passing is as much of a novelty as it was a few years ago, just how the league's progressed, right?
Not.
So
I think it's less of a novelty from centers and more of a novelty when I see like active screening 4s doing it. That's when I'm like, oh, that's a little unusual. But yeah, 5s, I'm like, you should be. It's kind of just a prerequisite. You got to be able to make short roll passes.
Yeah, exactly. And then also he could just roll to the rim. That's the other thing. Like, who's going to stop that guy, right? If he's got a runway.
Yeah, like if you've got someone defender, under 6'8" tagging him.
Which low man defender is going to exactly. So he has this superpower on offense where he can dictate so much, and things are weird with Memphis, right? They didn't run post ups for him. They were running this like 5 out, the way I've heard it described is like a spoken wheel, right? Where one guy drives, one guy cuts. If it doesn't work, kick it out, reset, whatever. This very cool, elaborate offense. I don't understand the firing of maybe Jacobs, but I don't get the LaRouche guy, Noah LaRouche. Like, he was doing some really cool things with the X's and O's, the assistant coach. But you have this offensive superpower, and then defensively, dude, like he was hanging with Curry in his drop, right? He's so big, like he's such a big guy. His rim protection is awesome. I had a stat pulled up. He's in the 86th percentile in opponent rim frequency on off, so that means he's a very high level rim deterrent. 83rd percentile, 96th percentile block rate, right? I see some, I might be late to this. I might be early to this or late to this. I haven't seen the comparison, but I'm also not on draft Twitter like that. But I see a lot of Yao Ming in him. He doesn't have the touch that Yao Ming had, that 10 to 15 foot range. I don't know how much that matters anymore. But he's just like this huge guy, right? And here's the thing about weaknesses. We have a kid on my team who's like, a little bit of a bigger kid, right? And he's like, he thinks like that he should cut weight. Like that's what he needs to do. And I'm like, no. What you have to do is make sure that your strengths are so powerful that the weaknesses don't matter, right? So like Edie, you can hunt him in isolation, whatever, but it takes time to get him in a switch, right? You gotta run pick and roll, and then you gotta run the pick and roll so well. The screen's got to be so good that the ball handler the ball handler defender can't navigate it, so you have to late switch, and that could take like 10, 12 seconds off the shot clock. Then fine, you have Edie. You have Edie in isolation, but now you actually have to do something about it. Brandon Pajemski had Edie in isolation yesterday for possession. He couldn't do anything about it, right? Brandon Pajemski is much smaller, much quicker than Edie. He couldn't do anything about it because Edie's huge. Okay, so the weaknesses, they're there. But if, with that size, with the inability to switch against him, like offensively, he's just such a force, such a problem. And if he keeps sharpening that up, like it's like Jokic. Jokic has weaknesses, but his strengths are so much better, right?
Right.
And that's what I'm kind of seeing there. Like I could see a guy who I feel pretty confident in being, just because of the production we've seen from him in the past. Like this guy could be a multi-time all-star caliber player, and that's why he's as high as 2 for me.
I like that pick. I think it's a great. And again, like he's just everything you've said. Like he just knows how to play basketball, man. Like he just knows what he's doing, and there's something to be said for that at the end of the day. And there's you look at what pick was Salon. I don't know how to pronounce it. 6.
He wasn't even in my top 30.
The Grizzlies got, which again, I'm not saying the Hornets should have drafted Edie because they have Mark Williams, who they ultimately ended up trading and then not trading, which was a whole weird thing. But, Zach Edey could have, I think we're going to look back on this draft and we're going to say, yeah, Zach Edey could have gone top 5, top 3 easily. All that being said, who's number 3? This is where I think we're going to completely splinter off into different directions.
Here, one second, Alex. Let me just 1 second. Can I?
You're fine.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. So we haven't done my number 4 pick yet.
We haven't. You're right. My fault. Number 4 pick, Matt. Let's hear it.
My number 4 pick. We might have forgot about this guy because he's been hurt for a while, but he really popped. I've heard people compare him to that Zac Efron from High School Musical. What do you think of Jared McCain?
Oh crap! I forgot about Jared McCain. I'm gonna call myself out. I completely forgot about Jared McCain. I will readjust my list accordingly. Yeah, Jared McCain is I agree. He should be like 4. But now I got to rethink my list. Give your McCain reasoning, and then I'll probably readjust things.
That's why I was surprised you had Filipowski, because I would have thought for sure you had McCain. But my thing with McCain is I think he has, honestly, like what he's shown to me this year, if we were just basing off this year, I think he was the best rookie. He's been the best rookie.
By far. It was not close.
This guy is scoring like 22 points per 75, which is like 80th something percentile scoring on 60% true shooting. He can score at all 3 levels. His rim finishing below 60%. He's a guard. He gets the foul line. Great shooter. 87% free throw shooter. The passing is kind of.
Can I say one thing about the finishing?
Yes.
So the finishing needs to improve. I will say, to his credit, still inside the arc, 53% on 2s, which if you're not finishing very well, then you still need to be hitting inside the arc at a above 50% clip, and he's doing that. So props to him.
The passing is the one thing that kind of, like, honestly, like, when I first made this list, I had him first. And then what kind of, like, slowly edged me down was the passing, because I'm like, he's got, like, a 4 passer rating, which is, like, not great for a guard. The other prominent guard we're going to talk about, he's like at a 7. But my thing with this archetype, this McCain archetype, is I'm worried he's going to fall into the combo guard archetype that we talk a lot about, like the Tyler Heroes, the Jordan Pooles, the Malik Monks, the CJ McCollums. And so there's the thing about offense, right? When you're at this position, right? I think McCain's like strong, he's sturdy, like he competes whatever on defense, but like he's never going to be even an average defender, right? So on offense, you have to hit this threshold where you're basically like a top 15, 20 offensive player in the world to be like a legit starting high level starter in the NBA. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like the question I wrote in my notes, I'm like, is he more like Darius Garland on offense, or is he more like Jordan Poole on offense? Because that changes a lot, right? Because you go from being, an all-star to being like a high-level sixth man, right? You just, like a spunky sixth man kind of guy. And so that's like why I don't have him higher. Because I think, again, for me, like a big thing is if you can already shoot, like that just makes me feel so much better about you as a player. And so I'm happy with that, and I think it gives him a really high floor as like that, like I said, spunky sixth man scorer, supercharged kind of guy off the bench. But can he get to that Tyrese Maxey level? You know what I mean? Can he ascend and become an even better offensive player? Because if he does that, he'll be the best player in this class. But it's just so hard to do, and it's such a fine line, this archetype. If you can get to that offensive threshold, it turns you into like a all NBA candidate player, right? But if you can't, you go all the way down to like high-end sixth man, low-end starter caliber.
You become
player.
A specialist. Yeah, you become a specialist,
exactly.
Basically.
So that's my thing with McCain. I'd like to see the pass. And the passing is really the thing that holds me back because he's a super efficient scorer. But if he can get to that, if he can become a high-level passer, you know what I mean, get to that like 6 or 7 passer rating, then I'm like, okay, I'm so sold on this guy. Like if he's averaging 22 and 6, or 22 and 8, whatever it is, 24 and 8. I don't even think about box score stats, but you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to adjust my list real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Edey, I'll have him at 5.
Okay.
I'm going to go Buzelis at 4.
Okay, I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. Please, you take the floor.
So the thing with this class is there's a lot of guys who are good players and they play their role really, really well. Buzelis, as I've watched, and Buzelis is definitely a player where the beginning of the season, like first 2 months of the season, he was not playing a ton and he wasn't playing very well in the minutes he was getting. Turn the chapter a little bit and we're post January 1st, February, March, and it's like, oh, he's playing like 20 minutes, 25 minutes a game some nights, and he's like pretty efficient. The shot is looking pretty good, and like the defense, he's got his rookie mistakes, but like he's shown some really nice rim protection chops. He's led the Bulls in blocks for I think like the last 2 months or something like that. He's like been a really good shot blocker as a forward, obviously like not as a center, and like he doesn't get a ton of reps on ball, but when he gets on ball reps, you see what you saw from him in high school, where you're like, oh yeah, you were a shot creator in high school and like in your EYBL and in the G League, but the G League's basically just like an AAU team. So that was kind of a weird thing, but the stuff that he was projected, because a lot of people remember this, people who are listening to this right now probably are like, yeah, he was projected to go top 3 like before his G League season. And then the G League season tanked his draft stock. This guy, some people had him number 1 overall. Like he was mocked number 1 in this class for extended periods of time. And throughout the first couple months of the season, we were kind of waiting to see that, like, where was this number 1 overall potential? And then it's been happening, and it's like, oh, you're a very gifted ball handler. Like, you have good ball handling chops as a 6'9", 6'10" forward. And he's not like the strongest player in the world. He's not the burstiest or the bounciest forward in the world, but he's got enough athleticism to complement that ball handling ability. And all of it's just kind of been coming together where I'm like, I don't think there's a lot of guys who I really like long-term off ball. He's a guy that I really like long-term off ball and on ball. And I would have him higher if it wasn't for like the questions of what are the chances that this actually comes to fruition? Like, this is one of the higher risk, higher reward picks for me, because I see a world where he ends up being the best player from this draft class. Like, yes, you heard that right. There is a world where Buzelis ends up being the best player from this draft class, but everything has to go right. It's like we were talking about with Filipowski. Everything needs to go right for him, and the cards need to fall the right way. But he has the chops, and like the shot is back now, like 34.5%. You look at that and it's like, that's not very good, but for a rookie, that's solid. And it's a lot more reflective of what I think people wanted to see him go back to, being a reliable shooter like he was all throughout the G League Ignite season. Like, the G League Ignite season, to me, sticks out as an outlier on an otherwise efficient resume of basketball throughout his career. And that is evident in his play, honestly, over the course of the season at this point. Like, his averages have evened out to reflect the efficient scorer that he's been when he's gotten the opportunity. And will everything go right for him? Probably not. But like, the projection that he has like a Franz Wagner kind of archetype, and that's not just because they're both like white forwards. I do see play style similarities when I watch both of them play. Like, if you put some of the like pick and roll reps of Buzelis and Franz Wagner side by side, you're going to see a ton of similarities with how they get by their defender, and some of the kind of finishing angles that they favor and the spots that they like to get to. I like Franz as a mid-range guy a little bit more than I like Buzelis for sure, but there's definitely play style similarities there. And I think everything else is at such a baseline level now where I'm like, you're going to have a good career, even if you're just like a solid starting wing, or even if you're just like a come off the bench wing, you're going to be a good player. But there's a lot of upside here. He's also only 20 years old. So that's why I have him at 4. I wanted to put him higher, but I just can't. I have McCain at 3, and we kind of talked about him already, so I won't go too in depth on him. I agree with everything you said, where it's like, it's really hard for the archetype of McCain to meet that threshold of offense where, your weaknesses are just completely ignorable.
Mm-hmm. And so,
did you have anything on Buzelis? Because I know you and I, he's not in your top 5, right?
So he was my last cut. My big thing is, I've watched a good deal of Bulls, especially lately now they've been rolling. But like, one thing is, admittedly, when I watch the Bulls, it's more of a giddy Kobe White kind of watch. I'm like, what do we really have here? So the cool thing I feel like for me, not watching too many prospects, especially ones that don't play college basketball before they enter the NBA, is like, I don't have all the preconceived notions that others have. So when I first saw Buzelis, I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, seems like another, like, handles the ball, white dude, skinny. Probably like, why do they have another Giddy? Why do they have another Giddy on the team? And then you watch him and you're like, this guy is an insane, like, physical athlete. Like, he could, he was in the dunk contest. He's like in the 94th percentile in block rate or something ridiculous like that.
He has his block rate was outlier levels for a rookie. Very unusual.
Yeah, and like, he could, like that, we talk about the low man. I don't think he's stopping Zach Edey when he's barreling down the lane, but he's stopping a lot of dudes, right? The drive stuff you highlighted. I love that one little clip where he did the Donovan Mitchell kind of high pickup. That's a really tough
swim.
one. That little
move.
swim. Yeah, a little swim move with the ball in his hand. That was nice. The free throw, like, I don't like his 3-point shot. I think his base is a little too wide, if you ask me. But the free throw shooting, just kind of 84%. It's hard to dispute. It means he's got some great touch. So I like the outline of the guys, like this big, like kind of a Franz Wagner type. My big thing is passing. He's at a 2.8 passer rating, 10th percentile. Don't love that, right? And then I'm still I'll admit some ignorance. I'm just not like I think I've watched a lot of the rookies. I feel like out of the upper echelon, the 12 guys on my list, he was like the one I at least have a grasp on right now. But I could definitely see some all-star juice from this guy for sure.
What last thing I'll say about him is the passing. I agree where you're gambling on the flashes that he's shown, because I watched like all of his assists this year, and there were a lot of like, I don't know what his total number of assists is this year, but I was able to put together a pretty extensive compilation of passes where I was like, that was a really high level pass. So I wonder how much of it is usage based and how much of it is, he is very limited as a passer, but there have been flashes that I'm willing to gamble on, but I also understand how much of a gamble it is. It's not guaranteed that he's got, a ton of reliable passing juice. Everyone has flashes. It's like, how consistent can you be, though?
Yeah. Yes. So we've got my number 5, my number 4, my number 2, and we have your 5 through 3. So we just have your 2 and 1 and my 3 and 1.
Yep.
Are you ready for my number 3, who I'm guessing is your number 2?
Maybe, yeah.
Is he Zachary Risache?
So this is your 3?
Yes. He's your 1?
He's my number 1.
So I will start with this. I think Zachary Risache, has the second highest floor of any player in this class other than Jalen Wells, because Jalen Wells is already a legit NBA playing starting caliber player on a winning team. But other than that, like, Risache's next, right? I think he's got such a high floor, like easily could be like one of these, premier role players that me and you do random podcasts about. We're talking like OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Suggs. But this guy's huge. He's like 6'10", okay? He can shoot. He shoots the ball very, very well. I don't know if you've heard, right? He can defend. He has like so much versatility as a defender where he can be on ball. He can play low man. He can be disruptive in the passing lanes. He gets to the rim really well for a guy who doesn't have like a bunch of creation juice. As a cutter, as a guy attacking off the catch. He has that 0.5 game that we love, right? He makes quick decisions, doesn't have a lot of fat in his game. I don't know if you've heard, last 2 months, been playing really well, 15 points per game, 62.5% true shooting, a big reason why the Hawks are still respectable without Jalen Johnson. And I love his fit next to Jalen Johnson. I think Atlanta's building something really cool over there. My thing is, I just don't know, unlike, he's like the only guy on this, like, out of the 5 guys on my list, I feel the least confident that he could be an all-star. Because for him to take the all-star leap, it's kind of like McCain, where he's got to do the thing that we've been hoping from every kind of guy in this archetype since Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And I feel like time has shown us that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are outliers. It's hard to go from being this 3-and-D plus kind of guy to, let me start generating out of pick and roll. Let me start doing more stuff with the basketball. Let me start doing some more passing. Risache's passing numbers are not great. I think he's a good connective tissue passer, but I don't like. I just it's so hard to take that next step. And if you can't, like, you just don't have enough latent value to really get out of that like 35 to 50th best player range. So I feel very, very confident he's going to be in that range, but I don't know if he could ever get to all-star level.
Yeah, to me, he would have to be like, you got to get into top 30 to sniff an all-star appearance. You got to end up being a top 30 player. Because then it's all about just like, do injuries break the right way for you? And we share all of the same concerns. I think for me, my whole thing is with Castle and him, I'm kind of splitting hairs because I like sure things and I like the guaranteedness of like, even if Risache doesn't get any better, Well, I don't. Well, honestly, I mean, yeah. Even if he doesn't get any better than what he is right now, it's like that's still a very good player to have. But I think obviously he will get better. But the guaranteedness of him is what was enough for me to put him just a tiny bit over Castle, just because we'll talk about Castle, who I think has been incredible this year. I think he'll probably win Rookie of the Year, and I think he is, if he wins Rookie of the Year, he totally deserves Rookie of the Year. But with Risa, I like his type of player a little bit more. Kind of just especially, fit is a big factor here. Where with Risa, I'm not really worried about his fit, like any team that he's on, but especially in Atlanta, it's like your fit's perfect next to Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. It's like you're an off-ball wing who can shoot the skin off of the ball and you can defend. It's like, yeah, that's a great player on any team. And then with Castle, it's like I like Castle a lot. And Castle is definitely, like, of the NBA ready guys, I think you could argue he was the most NBA ready guy in terms of just contributing. And, we kind of forget the Spurs were a top 10 seed in the Western Conference for a large chunk of the season until Victor Wembanyama got hurt. And then when Wemby got hurt, everything kind of went downhill, and the Spurs are now, 13th in the West. They're 5 games back from the 10 seed. They've definitely stumbled, but when they were competitive and trying to make a playoff push with Wemby healthy, Castle was a high-end contributor starting on that team. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think if it wasn't for some of the efficiency stuff, I'd have him number 1, but I do like the portability of Risa and the baseline effectiveness of Risa a little bit more, just from like avoiding as many unknowns as possible. That's where I see Risa is just like slightly ahead for me personally. Anyone having him higher or anyone having Castle higher, I totally understand.
Can I make like an admission here? Like
sure.
Speak my truth. I guess I can. It's a free country. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. This is a podcast too, so it's encouraged.
You're right. I'm at this weird point where I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't love Castle as a prospect. I really don't, because I very much dislike these physical specimens, these guard, wing, forward physical specimens who it's like if he gets a jumper, right? And I mean, I just don't think Castle's a good shooter. I got a chance to speak to him at the draft combine, asked him about his mechanics, and the thing that really concerns me about him is he's like very sure of his mechanics. Like he thinks like he's just been getting bad bounces. And he's at the NBA level now. He's working with coaches, very, very smart people, smarter people than me. Maybe I misinterpreted his response a little bit, maybe, right? But like that kind of thing where it's like I'm not super enthused by like his ability to get a jumper. So it's like, if I feel really weird putting him at 1, but like the reason I have him here is because he has the highest ceiling of anyone in this class to me, because he can put together a game. Like, see, if everything breaks right for all these guys, with the exception of Risa, but Risa, everything breaking right for him is just more improbable to me because of the kind of leap he would have to take as a ball handler. If everything breaks right for Edey, he's still going to have his weaknesses. If everything breaks right for Jared McCain, he's still going to have his weaknesses. Filipowski's still going to have weaknesses, right? For Castle, if he can get that shot, he's the most complete player in this class because he is a physical force. He's so strong, okay? His drive game, he's so relentless. He has so much nuance to it with his Euro step and the way he can use the decel step and the gather and passing. 82nd percentile passer rating as a rookie, okay? He's at a 7 passer rating. That's awesome. My study, right, the game score study, and maybe I'm married to the numbers a little too much for my own good, right? He finished with a high. So the reason I do this study every year, just for some background, if you guys aren't familiar with it, I take the average of a rookie's 10 best game score games, right? And take that because in theory, rookies are inherently inconsistent. So you want to measure the strength of their flashes, okay? so that eventually that becomes their consistent baseline. And this, you're going to laugh at this. Castle is at a 19.68 game score. That was the highest on the list. And then Risache, 19.65. So there's a 0.03 difference. Okay, so they're very, very close. I find it funny. Alexander Sarr is actually third, 19.51. We haven't spoken about him yet. But so he does, like, he has all the, like, he has, to me, like, the ceiling to be this two-way force at the guard position, kind of like Drew Holiday, right? And I mean, at his best, Drew Holiday was a borderline all-NBA player. He was kind of overlooked, I think, by voters at times, right? And I could see that for Castle, right? But I also think he has the lowest floor of any of these guys, because if he can't develop the shot, it's just such a problem at the guard spot to not have a shot, because that means you have to be the primary guy. You have to always have the ball in your hands, or teams are just going to ignore you, right? And I know the league is advanced in this way where you can cut now, and that's another reason why I'm going to leave Castle at 1, is because you can like Amen Thompson, right? He's able to kind of make up for it, even though we haven't seen the playoffs yet, so we'll see. But you can make up for it a little bit with the cutting and, being a physical driver and transition and all that stuff. And Castle has all that in his bag. So I don't know. I'm just in a weird place with him where I'm way lower on Castle than I think a majority of people are. Like, I was like kind of confused why the Spurs were like, we're not going to trade this guy under any circumstances. I'm like, I think he's good, but like, I don't know. Maybe that speaks to this class. So I don't know. I'm in a weird spot where I can't argue with the fact. I can't argue with the numbers. This guy's got the highest ceiling of all these guys, in my opinion, right? But I think if I was building a team, though, I'd like Risache more, but he doesn't have the ceiling to me. I'd like to have Edey more, but again, he is always going to be a polarizing player. I'd like to have Jared McCain more, and that's why I had Jared McCain at 1 originally. But then I'm like, if McCain is only as good as Jordan Poole on offense, he's nowhere near what Castle can be,
If this was I'll say this with Castle, and I'll kind of not necessarily amend my take, because I'll stick with my rankings. Mm-hmm. If this was a bet on primacy upside, I would go Castle. I think I completely agree where like you're talking about the best case scenario of Castle as like a starting point guard on a championship team. It's like, oh yeah, 6'6" guard that can defend very, very well, and also like score and finish and play on ball and off ball and facilitate your offense. It's like, yeah, that's a number 1 pick. Yeah, good job. That's the best player of the class. But the unknown of it is that's why I leaned Risache, was just like the guaranteedness of it. And with Castle, it's like, if I were betting on your ability to be a primary long term as like a star, I'm like, yeah, Castle, the best case scenario of him is that. I have one caveat that I want to say, and you kind of alluded to him. I still think Alex Sarr has the highest upside of the entire class. I just don't know if he'll get it.
In theory, because he's Evan Mobley.
It's so theoretical. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on Sarr?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. I think he's Evan Mobley. I wrote in my notes, he's Evan Mobley if he gets it, but I doubt he gets it. He just doesn't pop for me when I watch the Wizards. I watch Wizards a good bit because I like Bilal Coulibaly. I like Keyshawn George. I really like Keyshawn George. He's like a starting caliber player in the NBA. He didn't make my top 12 list, but that's kind of because I've always viewed him as like a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy, like kind of like a Risache light. Just the finishing, his instincts aren't great for me as a rim protector yet. He's kind of got a weird body to me. Like, I know he's big and he's strong, but he doesn't move particularly well for me. The passing hasn't always popped for me. I know he's hitting more threes. I don't know. He's so raw for me to really bet on right now. I agree with you. The theory of that two-way force at the center position. It's like, okay, so it's basically like if we took the best version of these guys, Castle's best version we'll say is Drew Holiday, and Sarr's best version is Evan Mobley. Like, you'd take Evan Mobley over peak Drew Holiday, right?
Of course, yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, from what I remember, Mobley was just so much more polished as a rookie. Like, he was contributing to a winning Cleveland Cavaliers team that only didn't make the playoffs that year because of injuries, right? Him and Allen, and Darius Garland and our guy Lauri Markkanen. Man, that was a fun team. Wow, that would have, man. But yeah, so I like him. I kind of want to. You want to segue? Just name some names real quick. Some guys. Just do the dude thing.
Yeah, Donovan Clingan is one that I'm sure people will take umbrage with. I like Clingan. It's just a little bit too limited right now. Mm-hmm. Just like 19 minutes a game. The offense is like there, but it's super specific. The efficiency has got to come up a little bit, but the defense looks really good. He also is just a giant. Like, when he's on the floor, you're like, yeah, that's like the biggest guy on the floor. He's huge. Mm-hmm. He's an absolutely massive human being. Kel'el Ware, we kind of touched on him. I like him. I think he's one of those guys who he's going to have a long career in the NBA. I'm pretty confident in him just sticking. I have very little doubt about that. Devin Carter hasn't played a ton, but there's been some moments here and there, but sample size is just so small and there's still some unsuredness there. Isaiah Collier.
Oh, I was hoping you would mention him. He's the best passing prospect I've seen since Giddey. Since Giddey. He's the best passing prospect since Giddey. Pure passing. The problem is there's nothing else.
Okay, yes, pure passing. I agree.
Yes. Yeah.
I was watching because I saw his assist numbers and I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And I started watching film and I was like, some of these are just good passes. They're not necessarily like, there's a difference between like just making the right pass and like creating an insanely open look. It's like the difference between playmaking and passing. I think Collier is like, yes, best passer right now. The playmaking, those I'm kind of like, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, the way I wrote him down, he's kind of like Stephen Castle light. Like,
I like that. Yeah,
even more inefficient than him, right? He can't finish the rim, can't shoot at all. Defensively, he doesn't really pop him, but he's strong, right? He's got a good body for it. If he can, develop into that, buy into that. Great athlete, but it's going to take a lot. Like, he's got a superpower for sure. And that's why he interests me. And he made my top 12 because of that. But there was just too much unknown there. Clingan, the thing with Clingan's like the best, and this is going to sound like a diss because I know me and you both adore this guy, but he'll never be an all-star. And again, part of this is weighing ceiling with probability. I am pretty certain Clingan will be a starting caliber center, but I think the best he could ever be is like Zubac. And Zubac is just not an all-star, right? And he's just like a really, really, really good player. Just a really, really good player. And so that's why he fell off the cutting block. With kel'el Ware, where would he be on your list if he was a 37% three-point shooter instead of a 32% three-point shooter?
I'd probably have him top 6 or 7. Top 7. Where would you have him?
I'd have him at 5. I think I would have him at 5 for sure. I'd have him over Filipowski. I think that's fair. Just like my thing is,
yeah, I think I'd have him over Filipowski. So 6. I'd probably have him 6.
Because when I watched him, I scouted him in December or January, and he was around that 36, 37% range. And that just like, I know it's silly, like 5 percentage points, but it changes things, right? Because it's like he goes from being like Misi, who's just like, strictly rim running, rim protecting big, right? And then, short roll passing comes along, et cetera, et cetera. We talked about that. But if you add the space, he can be a pop threat and he's this insane lob threat. Then he becomes basically an unstoppable pick and roll partner. Then it's like, okay, now we got some Victor Wembanyama light. You know what I mean? And like, that's one guy you want to be the light version of. Like, if you can give me 80% of Victor Wembanyama, you're probably an all-star, right?
Right, for sure, totally.
So I don't know. He's interesting. I'm going to be watching the 3-point percentage pretty religiously. Can I take a victory lap, or am I going to sound vindictive, bitter? What's one guy that I got flamed for relentlessly that we did not even mention? What are we into recording time, real quick, before we even say the name? What are we into? We're almost an hour in, right?
53 minutes.
Who have we not mentioned, Alex?
Ryan Dunn.
Okay, exactly. Just wanted to say that. Just want to say, I wish that man nothing but the best. He's going to have a long career in the NBA. I just wanted to say it. I couldn't help myself.
I know, and I understand. I think you deserve that one. You worked hard for that one, and you went through a lot for that. One last name I'll mention that I'm keeping an eye on, Terrence Shannon Jr.
Yes. Ooh,
he's good. That dude can play basketball.
Good. Very good. Very good at basketball. The rim pressure. He's like Collier. He has a superpower.
Yeah.
And
he can just shoot well too.
Yeah.
Well enough.
Mm-hmm. No, but more than that, dude. I was watching him. I watched him when the Timberwolves were rolling, right? Like we all did. And I was like, okay, the shot, interesting, right? But I was looking at his college numbers, and this guy was like high 30s his last 2 years at Illinois. Like, this guy could shoot. And he was shooting off the dribble, and he could shoot. He's good. He's very good. Strong, built like a man. He took it to LeBron a couple times. Oh, dude, you know what we haven't mentioned yet? Other than Jalen Clark?
Reed Shepherd?
Reed Shepherd. We have not talked about him.
So, I'm not giving up on Reed Shepherd. But he's so small, dude. And what concerns me when I watch him is Reed Shepherd, he's 6'3", but he's also 6'3" with T-Rex arms, and he's built like me. He's not super. He looks like the smallest guy on the court, even though he's not necessarily always the shortest guy on the court. And that concerns me. He's very timid when he's played. He's just a really timid player. And that's, he hasn't played a ton, so I'm not even ready to make a judgment on him just because he has hardly played, less than 12 minutes a game in 46 appearances. To me, there's just not enough to go off of for me to really want to buy a lot of him unless you're just really believing in the priors.
That makes sense. Who would you say has a higher ceiling, Shepherd or McCain? Ceiling, pure ceiling.
Oh, that's tough. I don't know. That's a really tough one. I think I like Reed as a passer a little bit better, but I just don't know. I don't know which one. What would you do?
Probably still Reed. I feel like he doesn't get to play because he's not a good defender. Houston's not going to play. Eme's not going to play you unless you're a good defender.
Yeah.
And I just can't get that thought of, I'm sure you watched the Lakers Houston, that first summer league game when he just looked like leagues above everybody else on the court, and he's just such a ridiculous shooter.
Well, he's Reed is not a great defender. He's a bad defender, but he does have very active hands, and that's something that was true in college. It's something that's been true in the NBA. He has a good nose for the ball and playing passing lanes pretty well. So I will give that to him. I don't hate that. I think Reed. I think Reed being drafted ahead of McCain in time will still make sense. This episode is going to make a lot of people mad. And I just ask you, don't get mad. Just tell us what you disagree with. Yeah. Respectfully, share your opinion with us, and we'll have a back and forth. We'll have a discussion, like civilized individuals. Make sure you use code MediaPass for your StatHead subscription. It helps support the channel, and you'll get a nice little discount on your annual subscription. Be sure to subscribe, leave a like if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, whatever that is. Follow, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. It helps the channel get up in the rankings. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at AlexHoops_ at Mat Issa 15. That's MATISSA 15. Thank you guys so much for listening and or watching. We'll see you in the next one.